Hello, my name is David and this is my video channel. It will be the introduction to it. I will tell you basically about how I ended up in China and why I was there for so long, to be honest. I used to be a civil servant. I'd been a civil servant for a very long time. It was nothing exciting. I was an administrative officer working in a job centre. Not as some people, when I say, oh, I worked for the government, were you a spy? No, nothing as fun as that. To be honest, it was a very easy job. That was part of the attraction, I suppose, that it was easy. But it was very lowly paid. I got about 2/3 of the national average pay. There was no job satisfaction, but the pension was okay. It wasn't good, but that's what I was hanging around for. Retired at 60, it was a 1/80th pension. I would have been on about 35/80ths when I retired at 60, which would have been okay. Would have been about £9,600. Not quite enough for me, what I wanted to live off, but I could save a little bit up to supplement that. But then the bombshell came. The government decided to change public employees' pension scheme. The private sector had been getting hammered the previous few years with their pensions, so they decided this was an opportunity to save money. It also meant they could give lots of bonuses to bankers and stuff like that, the people who really earn money. It meant I'd have to work till I was 67 instead of 60. And if I worked till I was 67, I would get about £7,200. If I retired at 60, I would get about £6,000. So I pretty much decided, no, I'm not going to do that. This was going to have no effect on the rich people who were making the rules, but have a big impact on people like me. And I worked out that if I left the civil service, I would still have accrued £5,100 in pension, so that I would be able to collect that when I was 60. I was basically turning my back on about £900 a year. But it's a bit of a no-brainer. To be honest, I got to the point where I was no longer thinking of killing people. I was actually thinking of how best to dispose of the bodies. Nielsen was a bit of a hero of mine. I think he killed 12 people before he got caught. And it's suggested that he was the person that turned himself in. He complained about the smell from the drains in the full knowledge that it was actually the smell of the decaying bodies. No one knows that for sure, but that's what's thought, that it was actually him that did that. Someone like that, they wanted to have credit, and I think he was getting frustrated about not being caught. But nevertheless, if you start thinking about killing your customers and how best to dispose of the bodies, it's probably time to leave. So leave I did. I had previously thought about teaching and actually started doing a teaching qualification. But unfortunately, I needed to have, I think, 100 hours of teaching in the first year, and I didn't have that, so I couldn't actually pass the first year. This was a problem. You had to be a part-time teacher to do a teaching qualification to allow you to become a full-time teacher. Not so easy. So I was thinking about, what else could I do? And at the time, I had a couple of Chinese friends, Sai and Ching, and they both suggested, why not teach in China? There was plenty of jobs in China, and the Chinese government wanted everybody to learn to speak English. It's a big country, a lot of people, and a lot of people wanted to speak English. And I thought that sounded like quite a good idea. I needed a few things. I needed a degree in any subject, which I had. I needed a TESOL certificate. Didn't have that, but it's 100 hours online. I needed a clean criminal record check. No problem, don't have a criminal record. I needed 2 references, and I needed 2 years teaching experience in English. Now, obviously, I didn't have the teaching experience. However, I was told that virtually no one who goes to teach in China has the 2 years teaching experience until they're actually there for 2 years. If you think about it, qualified teachers just aren't going to go to China. I was going to be taking a massive pay cut. I would be earning about £500 or £600 a month. But that was £500 in China, where the cost of living is very, very different. So the plan was this. I would go to China for 12 months. I'd have some teaching experience. I would come back, try and get a job as a part-time teacher in one of the local colleges. There's two near me. There's some on the coast, maybe 10 miles away. With the part-time teaching, I could then do the teaching qualification, the Cert Ed. I would probably be broke for a couple of years whilst doing it because the temporary teaching would be funding me. But at the end of the 2 years, once I got the qualification, I would be able to apply for a full-time teaching job in a college. I could actually apply for a full-time teaching job in a school, but I really wouldn't want to do that. I wanted to teach in a college. I wanted to teach adults. So it took me about 3 months online to actually do the TESOL course or TEFL course. You can buy them quite cheaply, about £70 from Groupon or something like that, something similar. But I had to make some preparations. I had a few pounds in debt, not a lot, but I wanted to clear those debts, just like credit card, student loan. I also needed to pay for a flight to China. That would be refunded one way or another. But I also wanted to save up a bit of money. I was going to rent my flat out, but if I couldn't rent the flat out, I'd still have to pay the council tax. In fact, I'd have to pay more council tax because I was getting a single person discount. I got 25% off for being a single person living there. Some people think single person discount, you get it when there's no one there. No, if your property is empty, you pay the full amount of council tax. I'd also have to pay for insurance. I was later to discover that if your property is empty for 3 months, that then lapses. It doesn't count. It's a derelict property and anyone can break in and do whatever they want. I also needed about £500 to last me until I got my first pay. There will be things that I'd one-off expenses that I'd have to pay for whilst I was there. So I applied for about 4 jobs. I was offered one of them. I think it was Royal International in Xi'an. I thought this was great. It was teaching adults. It was like a college. It was going to be like night classes. It was going to be a bit awkward if I was only going to be doing night classes, but you'd have the day to yourself. One of the good things about teaching in China, you never do a huge amount of hours. 16 to 20 teaching hours is the norm. And everything was going great. They said they didn't think there was going to be a problem. And then the very last hurdle, the PSB, it's like, I think it's the Public Sector Bureau. It's basically the police that deal with people traveling to and from China. Not just foreigners, but also Chinese people leaving the country. They said, oh, he doesn't have 2 years teaching experience. He can't get a visa. I was a bit annoyed about this because I knew this was something that most places were very flexible with, in that 2 years work experience was quite often enough. I had over 20 years work experience. But apparently it was a new guy in charge of the PSB and he wanted to stick to the rules, or maybe he just didn't like foreigners. I don't know. Well, so that was that out the window. I was a little bit panicking at this point because I'd really got into my head that I wasn't going to be a civil servant. And then I decided, I'm going to keep applying for jobs, but whatever, I'm going to quit anyway. So I handed in my notice, even though I knew I didn't have a job to go to. Yes, that is how much I hated working in the civil service. I decided at the end of the day, I'd rather be unemployed than do what I was doing. But it didn't need to come to that. I had a suspicion there would be more job offers, and there were. I ended up being offered a job for Aston English. Now, this was teaching kids, not my first choice, but I couldn't be picky because the term was about to start. It was in Jinan, Henan province. That's not Henan in Afghanistan, it's Henan in China. So I was going to be working with kids, but, never mind, could be worse. One of the things that was happening, that there was actually delay in getting my visa. As you can see, I'm quite pale skinned. Now, when you take a picture close up, which the camera shop did, with a flash, my skin becomes even whiter. And the photograph I ended up submitting, I didn't actually check it too much. You could pretty much see my eyes and my mouth, and everything else was this white. And it was on a white background. It was as if you could just, it's as if it was like blue screened, and you could just see my eyes and mouth. It was really difficult to see anything else. And they decided that if you're ill, you're pale skinned. Therefore, if you're that pale, you must be ill. So my photograph was now rejected, not my application. So I sent a new photograph off, my visa was delayed, and I ended up applying for job seekers allowance for 10 days. Not at the office where I worked at, but one nearer to me. I had no choice. It would have been fun going back to see my colleagues signing on and saying, oh yeah, I'm looking for work, when obviously I wasn't. But that was it. I got job seekers allowance for 10 days, and then I was off to